You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, in the state of New York, lawmakers are being slammed for blocking a charter school's budget expansion. The demand for more charter schools is rising, but in the state capital of Albany, lawmakers refuse to lift the cap to open more. Joseph Belluck, chairman of the State University of New York Charter School Committee, said he found the opposition to charter school expansion especially incredible because the schools were a lifeline to students and parents during the coronavirus pandemic. The teachers union opposes charter schools, which are privately managed, publicly funded schools that have a longer school day in year and whose staffers are mostly non-union. Now, the state lawmaker admits that, yes, the union pressure is a part of this. Joining me now is Dr. Steve Perry, founder and head of Schools, Capital Prep Schools, has a charter school there in Harlem. And the thing here, Steve, that is interesting. So the demand is really in New York City. They have this cap across the state. They haven't filled all of the schools in this whole deal, but they want to cap it in New York City. But that's where the demand is, and a lot of that demand is black people.
The overwhelming. First of all, let me thank you, Roland, for having me on. And it's so important that anytime we have a conversation with you, that we acknowledge how important Roland Martin Unfiltered is to the black community writ large. So, brother, thank you so much for what you do for our people.
Appreciate it.
Now we'll have a conversation. The importance of this conversation specifically around school choice and charters. We know that this has nothing to do with education, with the public. It has to do with a privately run, privately controlled fourth arm of government, which is the teachers union. I'll break this down. I'll make it.
All right, Steve, hold tight 1 second, because, okay, hold on, Steve. Your signal is breaking up. So, guys, I want y'all to fix that. Then let me know when we're clear with Steve's signal, because he's breaking up there, can't hear anything. So I'm gonna go to the panel, and then I'm gonna come back to Steve once y'all let me know we have it taken care of. I'm gonna start with you. I'm gonna start with you, Rob. Here's what I found to be interesting with this particular issue. The demand is there. The lawmakers are like, no. We're not expanding, and they admit because of the pressure. Here's what I don't get. If the people are saying we're not satisfied with the existing product, why would you not then listen to the people of New York?
Yeah, and it's I've seen this. This is complicated. I do support charters like Dr. Perry's because they are ones that are serving the community. It is important to have black-owned folks that are conscious of our kids and are looking out for our kids. At the same time, I've also seen in Ohio where we have the other extreme where it's you can have for-profit charters. They're not even nonprofits. You can have a charter, and this charter, we had a charter lose $100 million, and there's no accountability. So we need to do what's in the best interest of kids.
So 1 second, when you say there's no accountability, isn't that the state's responsibility?
What's that?
The accountability.
It is the state's responsibility.
That's the state responsibility.
But they're not going to do it because they want to. No, because so hold on. So yes,
right. They're in Ohio, right? They're in Ohio.
They're in Ohio. I'm talking about Ohio.
Right.
So they don't have. So I've seen the other side where there's no type of accountability for, and I'm not talking about nonprofit charters. I'm talking about there's also for-profit that make money that do this like for-profit prisons. And so what I like to see is some balance. Like places in New York have gone too far the other way. We can actually have it something that's focused on kids and that works. And sometimes unions do exert too much control. I've seen that with police unions too. And there needs to be balance really across the board. So I've seen the politics play on both of these sides. And certainly when you have too much power on one side, and you don't have any checks and balances. And this is the case when things can happen that way. And we've seen that happen on the opposite side in conservative states where, if you look at the numbers, the education is not moving forward because they're still not really trying to help kids. They're still not increasing the amount of funding. And sometimes it just goes to the contributors and for ways for them to make money off of kids too. So,
but again, but actually, it's not a complicated issue. It's really not. It's really not, because what it boils down to is no matter where you are, accountability is accountability. Yes, there are some states that have far more accountabilities than others. The issue that you're dealing with, again, with New York, and we got Steve back, is this. It is very simple. There are thousands. The schools of Eva Moskowitz, they have some 20, 30,000 people on waiting lists to get into those schools. Okay? We talk about schools that are successful. Here's my whole deal. If Steve Perry has a successful school, I want Steve to have 5 more. And if Steve has 5 successful charters and he's kicking butt compared to a traditional school, hell, I ain't got a problem with Steve having 5 more.
Either.
The issue, Steve, that's crazy here is that the parents are saying, we don't like what you're feeding me. They're saying, you gonna keep eating what I'm feeding you.
Brother, we just read in our school in the Bronx that just opened last year, we have 50 available seats. We had 500 applications. Our school in Harlem, we had another 700 applications for 50 available seats. When we talk about a public education, when the public speaks and the public moves with its feet, then we should listen to them. We need to stop with the dog whistling of accountability. Almost no one who talks about accountability in public education knows what they're talking about. Because if we want to have a conversation about accountability, I would gladly put all of the neighborhood schools up to the same accountability measures that charter schools are up for. We have to be first approved to even be considered to open a school. Then after we're approved, we have to go through another process of submitting an application. And then after we go through another process, the union gets to get another swing at the pinata to come in every single year and determine whether or not we get to stay open. Show me a neighborhood school that has that level of accountability. None. 90% of the children go to school. 90% of the schools, the children in the city of New York go to traditional neighborhood schools. 90%. What's your beef with Black and Latin people making a decision, the public, that they want something different? Why do we keep saying that Black lives matter, yet send Black children to the lowest performing schools in the country? When the highest performing schools in the state of New York are schools of choice, most specifically charter schools. So if you really care about Black kids and Black, put them in the best position to be successful, this notion about for-profit or not-for-profit, first of all, for-profit charter schools represent the tiniest of tiny small portions. But if you want to have that conversation, they're illegal in New York. So it's not a conversation. Yeah. The reason why this is an issue, the only reason why it's an issue is because people have been drinking the union Kool-Aid. These are overwhelmingly white-run organizations that have been pumping foolishness, lies, and deceit into the Black community, leading us to believe that somehow if we pick our kids up and go to a school that's better for them, that somehow hurts our children, despite the fact that these organizations consistently keep teachers and principals employed who are not educating your kids. So we have to look at it very simply. The teachers' unions in New York City in particular, there's 75,000 teachers in the city of New York. The teachers' union receive $1,500 in union dues per teacher. That's $112 million per year that they get in receipts. The 100,000 children who go to charter schools have approximately 7,500 teachers. The 7,500 teachers represent a net loss in revenue to the teachers union of about $75 million. They ain't trying to lose no money. This has nothing to do with your kids because the teachers union isn't even against charter schools. They're just against non-union charter schools. This has nothing to do with children. It has nothing to do with data. And more specifically, I want to bring up a point. In New York, we have Black, Latin, and Asian educators who started our own schools in our own communities. We talked about Black power. We talk about finally having self-determination. And this is an opportunity for us to open our own schools in our own community where we run our own curriculum on side with the white-led teachers unions. Come on, man. What are we talking about?
Well, wait. So this is what I think you should do, because I think some of that was directed at me. So let me just say this very quickly. I want you to come to Ohio and build some schools, because that evidence is not in Ohio, okay? They sound like they are overreaching in New York. And I do think there should be more schools like yours, like the KIPS of the world, like many of the brothers I've seen in New York. I agree with that. But I also don't think that necessarily saying if we get rid of all teachers unions, suddenly we're going to solve systemic inequality within education. That's the problem I have, right? So like saying that unions are the problem with everything in entire education. That's the only thing. That's the only point I have a disagreement with you on. That's it.
So, brother, let me say this to you. I want anyone to have an opportunity to be a part of any organization they wish. Period. Yep. But let me make this clear. Compulsory attendance in an organization is unconstitutional. Making someone pay dues to an organization that they did not decide to be in by virtue of the fact that they actually just picked the profession is, to me, unconstitutional. So what I think is that we have a deeper conversation. What is best for Black children? And Roland Martin years ago, conversation. Roland Martin did a poll. Roland Martin did a poll. I'm not sure how many years ago, brother Roland. You can speak to it. Where the question was asked, how do Black people feel about charter schools and choice in general? 82% of African Americans said that they supported it. So if this is what we want, why can't we have finally something that we want? Why are we always fighting for the simplest things? Right. So I'm not suggesting, brother, let me be clear. I'm not suggesting that you do. And so if it sounds like I'm coming for you, please know that I'm not. I'm somebody who deeply loves what I do. And so if it sounds any other way, please know that that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this. Too often the conversation shifts to union tropes. And I'm saying to you, as a Black man who is opening schools in our own community, to serve our own community, to teach what we want. When I saw a brother on the Breakfast Club this morning who was talking about how he's going to work to teach brothers in the streets about how to use stocks and bonds, you know what I did? I reached out to him and I said, hey, brother, why don't you come talk to our schools? I ain't got to talk to nobody about that. I ain't got to go down to no school district and have that conversation. I don't have to make sure I run it up the curriculum ladder to decide whether or not that's going to do. I reached out to Charlamagne. Charlamagne said, here's the brother's number. We have a conversation now. He's coming to talk to our school, to talk to Black and Latin kids about how to use them, how to use the system and not have the system use them. That's the difference when we run our own schools.
Which is why I support charter.
So one second. So Johanna, your question for Steve Perry.
Yeah, I think that the conversation around charter schools is a great one. When I was in law school, I was a substitute teacher. I subbed at a number of charter schools throughout the state of Indiana. And not all charter schools are perfect, right? And what I can tell you, and not all public schools are perfect either. But if we can create our own charter schools and have curriculum that will serve the needs of our children and have teachers and staff and principals who serve in the best interest of the students, for me, that is something that I support 100%, because I understand the importance of having a sound education. As an immigrant who came to this country at the age of 9, did not speak English, I am a beneficiary of a terrible education system. I grew up in Orlando, Florida, Pine Hills area. Some of you may be aware of it. It's now called Crime Hills. I benefited from a very terrible education system. And I wonder if my parents understood or knew about charter school options when I was growing up, perhaps I would have gotten a much better education. And Brother Perry, I've been following your work for quite some time. You are a passionate man about the work that you do. Keep fighting the good fight. I don't have any questions for you. If anything, we are here to support you and support your cause. Thank you for what you're doing for our babies.
Let's go to Michael, please.
Just,
Michael,
appreciate it.
Michael, you got a question for Steve. And I want to stay on topic in terms of what's happening in New York State again. Them not wanting to lift the cap, and that is Michael. Go ahead.
Yeah, just very quickly here. So, what do you think? How do you think you get around this, Dr. Steve Perry? What do you think are the next steps for you all in the state of New York to fight against what's taking place with state lawmakers?
To be honest with you, brother, it's about holding people accountable for what they receive for themselves. It's about saying to Black and Latin legislators in particular, brother, I know you send your kid to a magnet school, charter school, vocational technical school, private school, but a school that is not your neighborhood school. All I want you to do is to extend that same thing to the people who you represent. It's about holding, in many cases, our own people who are in positions of authority in the legislature accountable. So it's about pushing them, because we know that the white liberal arm of the Democratic Party is so deep in the empire, they wish not to hear what we're saying. I wish they could. Don't tell me that you support self-determination when, in fact, we're coming to you. When a Black parent says, I don't want to go to this, I don't want my child going to this school, as the sister was saying, I don't want my child going to this school. Who are you to tell them that they must? Why would you do that? So we have to hold, quite frankly, some of the people who we care most about accountable. Some of our own Black and Latin legislators who are in positions of authority, specifically in the legislature in New York State. There's a really strong group of brothers and sisters who are legislators in New York who could make this issue go away. I'll give you, for instance, we have an organization I mentioned, it's called the Black, Latin, Asian Charter Collaborative, or BLAC, as we refer to ourselves. We represent about 25,000 children in New York City proper. And we are all founders of our own schools. And so I'm one of the people who does this work, and humbled to be able to do so. We've spoken to the legislature, and we've spoken to the Black and Latin caucus, as well as the Asian members in that group as well. And we've said to them, much in the same way that you would do an MWB, Minority Women Business Association, that you would open up more charters to that group, give those to us just the same way, because we're the least likely to get a charter at African Americans and Latin leaders. We're the most likely to have our charter revoked, and the least likely to, when our charter is in trouble, to have that charter presented to another organization to have that charter saved. So what we have to do is we have to invite more people from our community to open more schools. There are so many pastors and community activists and business leaders and educators and parents who want to open schools in our community. We need the legislature to give the community what it wants.
All right. We lost Steve's signal there, but Steve, I appreciate it. Thank you so very much, man. We'll see what happens there in New York State, and we'll keep following the story. Thanks a lot. All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends, go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.